I'm too tired. I said, I'm burned out. I want to be with the kids. I think I'm just going to become a consultant because I know I can make a mil or two a year just doing consulting. My wife started laughing. And I said, what are you laughing about? She looks at me and she goes, it's really sweet that you want to do that, but don't. You're going to be miserable. If you're not charging for a big mountain, you're miserable. Go find your next mountain, because if you don't have one, you're not you.
Anik, welcome to the Earn Your Happy podcast. I am so excited to be talking to you today. Thank you so much for coming on.
No, it's my honor, a pleasure, and I'm excited to be here talking to you and to your audience. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. I feel like what we are about to talk about is going to not only impact a lot of people, but hopefully save a lot of people, maybe a really heartbreaking, very large lesson that, I know that probably feels really insane for you to have learned, but also I can only imagine, the gifts and the richness that have come on the other side. And also what will, be in your future and what you're already creating again. So why don't we kind of rewind? And I know that you even have, a great story about how you grew up and thought that you were going to be on a path of something completely different according to your family and ended up in something, I think this happens to so many of us as entrepreneurs, feeling that call and being like, oh God, I'm about to disappoint everybody because I think I'm supposed to do something else. So let's start at the very beginning, because you have, I think, a story that's going to relate to so many people.
Yeah. Well, so again, thank you for having me. And I always tell this story, and we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into some Hollywood level drama. I've actually made a movie. Most people don't know this. I do crazy stuff. I do stuff just for the experience of it. So I am on IMDb. I'm a producer, an actor. I made a James Bond spoof film in Bollywood in India.
I love that.
And I got to do, Lori, I got to do the iconic scene that every male wants to do, which is I shot a car and walked away as it blew up.
Okay.
And so
I mean, I want to do that too. So
yeah, there you go. So that's a badass scene. But yeah, my story is, and then I always jokingly say, like, at some point in my story, about halfway through, if you have a violin, it'd be a great time to play it, because it's tough. It gets sad. But as a very young kid, I was built a little different. And I think a lot of us entrepreneurs can kind of always track back and say, yeah, I was thinking different.
yeah,
I was the kid in third grade that had the lemonade stand. I know that's pretty cliche, but here's where mine's a little different. I hired a bunch of second graders to run it. So I was inside watching cartoons while they were running it. And they would show up in my door and pay me pay me my keep. And
did that just come from your brain, or did you see someone do that?
I wanted to make money and didn't want to work. And so I figured it out. I have no clue where it came from. As a matter of fact, the way my business got shut down was my employee's mother was a very unruly, disruptive force. And she came knocking at my door. And my parents had no idea. My parents thought that lemonade stand was the other kids' lemonade stand. And my mom never really asked why they keep coming to the door. They just thought they were coming to play with me or something. But the mom shows up and tells my parents what's going on, and my parents get upset. And I'm sitting there thinking, I don't understand why we're upset. I'm making money. They're making money. People are getting lemonade. Like, this is a win-win-win, right? And so, but that was my first venture. And then I would do all these odd end things. So like elementary school, I found out, I don't know where I got this idea, but I found out who was the head of our community, like the head of the HOA. Mm-hmm. And as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, I showed up at the meeting and I said, give me work. Give me the stuff that you don't, it's summer. I got nothing to do. So I was painting signs, clearing bushes, doing mulch, mowing the lawn of our community. And my parents, my mom would be like, oh my God, I can't believe my son's doing all this. Like, cause my mom, like, old Indian traditional a little bit. And my dad would be like, hey, I'm proud of him. Like, he's doing stuff. Yeah. So I was built a little bit different, but at a very young age, I knew that I wanted to be very successful. I wanted to have nice things. And I grew up, I'm very privileged, by the way. My dad's amazing. What he did, I can never kind of match his feat. My dad grew up in a village that had no electricity. He used to study under candles and a street lamp a mile down the road. Mm-hmm. And the irony is, when he retired, he was a nuclear mechanical engineer responsible for the operation of 2 nuclear power plants in the United States. And I was like, dude, you had no electricity and now are responsible for the electricity of 10 million people. Like, how
so
cool is
crazy.
That? Mm-hmm. So growing up, I had him to look at as an example, but I just knew that, I saw them struggle. I saw my parents do the struggle. And I was like, I want to grow up to be at a place where money is not an issue. Meaning,
Mhm.
I don't know if I want to be a billionaire or if I want to have a private jet or whatever. But here's the thing: if I want to fly private, I should be able to do it without being like, oh my God, how will I pay for it? That was what I wanted. That was freedom for me.
Yeah.
And so I looked around and I looked at everyone. And now I don't, I'm brown. I'm Indian, guys. I come from India. I'm born in America, patriot, flag on my head here, but I am ethnically from India. So I looked
Mhm.
around my community. Guess who had the nicest cars, biggest houses, and got the most respect? Doctors, right? If I walk
Mm.
into a hospital, 30% of that hospital is Indian, the doctors at least. And so I literally, ergo, made a decision as a young kid. I'm going to be a doctor when I grow up. I made my parents very happy. Everyone celebrated me. So all the way through high school, I worked my ass off and I got into one of the best undergrad programs, full scholarship. And that undergrad program had a one-way ticket into an Ivy League med school. I was done. As far as anyone knew, I was set and I had a full scholarship. My parents are happy. They're celebrating. 6 weeks into college, I woke up one morning, Lori, and opened my eyes and thought, oh shit, what have I done?
Mm.
I'm miserable. I can't
Oh
do
man.
this. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Now, here's the difference between me and I think a lot of other people. I don't let feelings like that just go unanswered. All
Yeah.
right. That for me was really important to think more about, to be honest and open about. A lot of people would just 30 years later still be waking up every morning having that feeling. Now,
Totally.
it took a lot of guts, and I didn't have the guts the first year because my dad was going through a tough time. I'm on a full scholarship. Everyone's super happy. I've got Harvard recruiting me to come to med school there, and I'm like freshman year. How can I just throw this away? This is like everyone's dream. Second year, I'm in the library. I'm studying. I used to always study with one of my friends. She walks up. I don't know what I was doing. Maybe I was sighing and pieing. I don't know what the hell I was doing. All of a sudden, she just like library, quiet. She reaches over, she slams my book shut, and she's like, "That's it. I've had enough." I'm like, "What the heck got into you?" And she's like the nicest person on the planet, by the way, sweetest person. She's like, "That's it. Right now, get up, get your stuff, go home right now. Talk to your parents. Enough of you being miserable." And I was like, I was just sitting there studying chemistry. Like, what the heck? So I did. I called my parents. I said, "Can I come home?" It's 45 minutes away. I drove home that night. I told them I'm miserable. I want to switch universities. When I do, I'll lose the full scholarship.
Mm.
I want to go into the track of business. I want to study finance. We don't have anyone in the family that's done that. I won't have any mentorship. I'll lose this whole set life. Thought my parents would be like, "You're an idiot." My dad looks at me and says, "I don't agree, but you're my son. I want you to be happy and I'll support whatever you do."
Mm. Mm. What would you have
Until this
done if
day,
they didn't say that?
knowing me, I probably would have still, I probably would have still
Still
like,
done it.
I
Yeah. Yeah.
wouldn't, yeah, I wouldn't have stayed.
Yeah.
But it would hurt more, right? And
Yeah.
so I made that decision, made the change, and I tell this story in so much detail only because I want anyone listening right now to say, do you have the are you at that crossroads in your life? Do you need to make that tough decision? Because you're not going to make it to the next step without making that. You have to make
Yep.
tough decisions in life. I've been making them since I was a kid and I've gotten good at it, but
Hmm.
that decision, so it gets funny because then I went to college, I switched universities and did this whole big change. 3 weeks into being in the finance program in the business school at University of Maryland, I'm like, I hate this. Now I'm like, okay, we have a problem. I'm going to
Now you're
be
like,
a
what do I
broke
like?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna be a broke kid in my parents' basement.
With a
What is going
lemonade
on with
stand.
me? Yeah, with a lemonade stand. Exactly. I'm gonna be like a grown adult with a lemonade stand. So I didn't quit. I stayed in it, and I did a lot of self reflection, a
Mm.
lot, and I realized something. The problem wasn't what I was learning. The problem was that I was at a state in my mind where I was like, "Put me in, coach. I'm ready."
Mm.
I didn't like the idea of just sitting around taking class. I wanted to go do something, get my hands dirty. And so that was when the first time I really started taking this whole online marketing thing seriously. I found it and I was like, let me see if I can make something of this or like so
Mm.
I do something. And I got happy. Didn't go to frat parties, didn't go to any college events, didn't go to football games. As a matter of fact, you'll laugh. My first football game I ever went to at my college was 2 months after I graduated.
Mm.
So like I was really gung ho focused,
Yeah.
started falling in love with the idea of business. But irony is, I got a degree in finance, and I wouldn't, if I was you, wouldn't trust me with any of your financial books. I don't know what I'm doing, but marketing. So,
Mm.
from practically speaking, I fell in love with marketing, and I love it. I love everything about it. And so that's the trade I went into. And I always laugh and say, what the heck did I do with the finance degree? Like, why do I even have this? Well, what did I tell you? We were just talking about this earlier.
Mhm.
Life is funny and the universe delivers things to you in interesting ways. Because right now, the software that we developed that I'm currently, marketing, that could be, honestly, right now, looks like could be my $1 billion company.
Mm.
Guess what space is the number one space that's being attracted to the software?
Mhm.
Finance. So
Mhm.
it's like one thing I try to tell everyone I meet and talk to is that you might be in the wrong place right now. And you might feel like you're in the wrong place, but what's going to be really ironic in 3, 4, 5, 10 years when you look back is you'll realize that if you weren't here, you would have never reached the right place.
Totally.
Everything's connected. Absolutely everything that happens to you is connected. I went through one of the worst things not one, this was the worst thing that ever
Mm.
happened to me by far. And I'll give some examples that'll shock people. But the worst thing that could happen to me that nearly destroyed me, that took every morsel of my body to survive, has now turned into the best thing. And
Mm.
it's turned into something that I might be on the verge of building $1 billion company. It's given me a new mission. It's given me a new focus. I'm helping people every day and I'm building a software business out of it that could end up being worth
Mm.
$1 billion. So
Mhm.
you currently, you might be going through a horrible divorce. You might be going through some serious health issues. You might be going through whatever. But if you put the lens on of saying, how does this turn into an opportunity? How does my mess turn into my
Mm.
message? Man, you could be sitting on the best thing that's ever happened to you. So that was kind of the early days. And then I just started doing stuff and trying things. It took me 18 months. I struggled my ass off, couldn't make it. I failed, 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 failed. We didn't have the support back then that we have nowadays. We didn't even have podcasts back then. I mean,
No.
Google wasn't, that kind of
Nope.
ages me. Google was just getting started. Facebook didn't exist. And
Mhm.
so I was really out there on the trenches doing this myself. And 18 months later, started making some money. By the time I graduated, my business was on track to do $1 million that year. Here's the irony. You want to laugh, Lori? Guess where I ended up?
Always.
I ended up in my parents' basement.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
for opposite reasons, I was so busy. I was traveling so much,
Mm.
speaking at all these stages, doing international stuff. I did not have time nor desire to go buy a place and be on my own, and being home with mama's cooking and
Oh,
helping
come
me
home to
doing
mom's cooking?
laundry. And
Yeah.
like I was only home for like a week out of a month anyway, so I love coming home. And
Mhm.
then my parents' basement was finished basement, wide open, so I set up an office down there, had 2 employees. I always laughed. I said my biggest fear is I'd end up in my parents' basement, and sure enough, I did, but on the opposite side of it.
Yeah.
So from there, I would love to say the rest is history, but it wasn't. My business went up. I
Mm.
took off. I did great things. I got a chance to speak for people like Tony Robbins and
Mm.
travel the world, and
And this is all
eventually
on
met
marketing. This is mostly all on like marketing,
online
online
marketing.
marketing, digital
Online
marketing. Okay.
marketing. Yep.
Okay.
Affiliate marketing, paid search, SEO, conversion, copy, funnels, the usual, right?
Yep.
And was in Singapore and Malaysia and India and Europe and all over the US. And my business took off to the point where it was doing let's say about 5, 6 million a year, and then collapsed. 2008
Mm.
happens. By 2010, our industry gets destroyed. I'm burning millions of dollars trying to build a software company in India. 1 month in India, 1 month in US, 1 month in India. I don't know. Honestly, my parents, at that point, I owned a place down the street from my parents. My mom, she'd call me and be like, "Hey, honey, you want to come over today for dinner? I made your favorite food." And I'd be like, Mom, I'm in Malaysia."
Mm.
She's like, "When the heck? I just talked to you yesterday. You were home." I'm like, "Yeah, I hopped on a flight 5 hours after that because I got an
Mm.
invite and I just left." Like that was my life. I loved it.
Yeah.
And but then I went near bankrupt, and then I came back, and my business climbed all the way up to almost 20 million. And then I went bankrupt almost again in 2018. And then
Mm.
my business went up to 40 million. And then the FTC stuff happened and I went almost bankrupt at that point again. So people always say, like, what keeps you going? I'm like, well, historically speaking, I've lost it all 3 times and come back every time 2 or 3 times bigger. So I'm kind of
Mm.
excited now. I'm like, oh,
Mm.
then my next milestone is 100 million. I also was speaking to a billionaire once, and he told me something that made me laugh. And he said, you have to have gone almost broke at least 3 times to be a real billionaire.
Mm.
But then I heard Cody Sanchez say something, and it was like, I think it was Cody. She said she was talking to a billionaire, and they said that you have to have been sued by a regulator, gone near bankrupt 3 times. And there was one more. I can't remember what the third one was. But, you know, it's in all of these things that have been going horrible for me. A lot of people get wrapped up and say, God, why is this happening to me? I lost
Mm.
everything. And trust me, I lost a lot. I sit back and think, well, shit, I'm glad I got that out of the way. Now let's
Mm.
go make the good stuff happen. because I'm
Mhm.
right on track. I got this right where I wanted it to be. So,
Mm.
so that was how I got my start. I've been out since then teaching online marketing ever since. Love it. 20 plus years in, still doing it. But now, because of some recent events over the last couple of years, my mission and my message has changed. A little, well, quite a bit. And somehow, I've taken a topic that most would say is boring and dull and horrible, and people are fascinated by it and are supporting it. So
Mhm.
it's great to be here, like yourself. So thank you for
Mm.
having me.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the kind of the final thing that got you to where you are recently. But I want to back up kind of, let's just go a year before you were sued, right, by
Hmm.
FTC. Okay.
Hmm.
So let's back up a year prior to that. What are you
Yes.
teaching? What are you doing? What are you talking about? Where are you at in life? How are you feeling? You feel like, oh my gosh, I've already overcome all of these challenging mindset things, like understanding that this has all happened to you for a reason, but probably really thinking this is like the up and up from here. Kind of just paint that picture for me.
Yeah. So you want me to go a year before the FTC thing happened?
Yep. Just like,
Yeah.
where were
Okay.
you at? All everything,
Sure.
what you were doing. What are you exactly? Are you coaching on? Who are you? What are you doing?
Great. Great. Okay. So I had spent 20 years at that point, or 18 years at that point, building up a publishing company. This was a
Mm,
dream of mine. It was like the hardest business on the planet to build. And so a year before this whole thing happened, I was stressed out of my mind. I was trying to put the pieces together, and I was falling completely out of love with the business because I was
mm,
just burned out. It was 18 years in. I had a dream of mine that was to sell a company by the time I turned 40. I was fast approaching 39, and my wife and I were planning our family, so we were going to have our first kid. And I
mm,
was overall just I was making a ton of money. My company
mhm,
was in position to getting close to doing 40 million a year. I had bled a lot of capital and bad investments on tech. We were getting ready to shave that department, so we were going to instantly be 20+% margins. Money was never an issue. We were flying private. We were living the life. I mean, but I wasn't happy. I
mhm.
wasn't. I mean, I think back now. Like I love my wife. I was personally very happy.
Right.
I have no complaints. But just generally, I wasn't waking up like, yeah,
Like
like
fulfilled. Like,
let's
yeah.
go get it fulfilled. Yeah. And
Hmm.
so I got an offer to buy the company by the end of 2021, and it was a good offer. And so I said, let's do it. So we went through this really painful due diligence, came out of it, and by early March of 2022, I didn't like the buyer anymore. Didn't want to be part
Mm,
of it. Didn't like them. But now I had the taste in my mouth of the possibility of selling the company.
mm,
So I turned down that buyer, walked away. But the good news was we had done all the due diligence. I had my data room done, and I had another buyer lined up like this, and a really good one. And this one's going to be just a great buyer. They went through the due diligence super fast and said, we just want you to do a couple of things that'll take you a couple of months, get rid of these departments, shave all of it, and we'll come in and write the check. The money's ready. But this is awesome. It's going to be a multi-deca-million sale. I'm set. My wife is delivering on. So my wife delivered our baby on April 21st of 2022. I'm holding that baby in my hands, and I'm like, I'm done. Right? We
mm,
were only about 6, 8 weeks away from selling. I was going to. I was. My birthday is June 14th. I was going to be 39. I'm like, damn, I did it. Right? And my right hand, who was going to go on to continue being the CEO of the company, he was ready. And I was like, I don't want to go back to work. I'm holding this baby. I'm
mm,
like, I want to be dad for a year. Like, I want to take some time off and then come back and do the next thing. So I took 3 weeks off, came back. The first order of business I did was I called the HR attorney, and I was like, I want to prepare to announce next week that my right hand is now the CEO. I want to promote him. I don't want the PE firm that buys us to promote him. I want to promote him. And then I want him to shepherd the company through the last couple months of the acquisition. So he gets to learn working with them. And I want to ride off into the sunset and just be the chairman of the board and an advisor, and super excited. I mean, this is everything I ever wanted. And it was a really difficult business to build, but we did it, and we did it against all the odds. And the fruit was there to be had. May 20th, May 20th. This is 3 days after I'm back to work from my daughter being born. A month after my daughter's born, I get the FedEx letter in the mail. Now, the
mm,
minute I get that letter, obviously I'm not stepping down now. That would be horrible. I'm not gonna. That's not the gift I wanted to give my right hand. The acquisition's gone.
mm,
And here's the worst thing. I find out I've built the worst type of company I could have ever built. Because the FTC, when they come and investigate you, they don't, it's not public, it's quiet, it's confidential until they sue you or they settle with you, then it's public. But you don't have to tell anyone. I don't have to tell anyone in the company. I don't have to tell any of my experts who I publish. I don't have to tell my customers, but that's not who I am. That's not how I am.
mhm,
So, Lori, let's just hypothetically say I publish you at Learn. So that means I'm running ads with your face, your name, your funnels, processing money on your behalf. You're listening to all the messaging from my team. And I call you and say, Lori, I got bad news. Being investigated by the FTC right now. Hey, listen, just an investigation. We can keep doing revenue. We can keep doing business. They didn't stop us from doing business. Naturally, one of the first things you're going to say, Lori, is my name on that? No.
Yeah.
Do you mind stopping all my ads, please? Can we shut this
Mhm.
stuff down? Because you don't want the bleed over. So I have enough respect for the people I was publishing that on Monday morning, I got the notice on Friday. By Monday morning, I called my team in 9 a.m. I said, shut it all down. And everyone's like, what? I said, $40 million a year company gone. So I went from a company that was about to sell for deca millions to a company worth nothing
Mm.
in the split moment notice. Because I knew that day I'm going to have conversations with 9 of the top people that we promote and that we are or 9 of the top experts. And actually, what ended up happening was 8 of them were like, yeah, I would want you to turn it off. One was like, I don't give a crap. Let's accelerate. I'm like, okay, easy, Tiger. It's not the time to accelerate. So we ended up losing 80% of our revenue because of that. And
Mm.
so then by Thursday, which is now 6 days after I got the notice, I had to lay off 80% of my team.
Mm.
And that was really painful because every single one of the people on my team were A players that took me years to build. And I've got physical scars. I've been hospitalized, had many surgeries. I
Mm.
have Crohn's disease. It's been a total battle. I can tell you the whole saga about that. And I had put heart and soul and body into that company, and I watched it wither in front of my eyes. And now somehow I had to get myself together to fight again for the remaining 20% who stuck with me for God knows what reason. They've been through hell and back, but they're like, we're not going anywhere because we know you,
Mm.
we know your heart, we know this company, we're going to rebuild it. We want to be here for that. So a lot of it was like, I got to make it for them. I got to make it for
Mhm.
my family. And since then, my wife and I, we had 2 kids in this whole time. So we didn't think, I was joking. I'm like, wasn't hard enough for me to be sued by the FTC, have a business completely fallen apart, have all these issues. We thought this is a great time to add 2 kids to the mix. Let's got 2
Mhm.
kids as well. But now it gave me a new mission, right? I was like, I got these 2 girls who are going to be total badasses. I want them to
Mhm.
see their dad fight through this, and I
Mhm.
want them to see what happens when we face adversity. We don't shy away, we don't turn around, we don't quit. We fight through it. We own it,
Mm.
right? And so that's kind of been a big inspiration and motivation for me, but it's been really, really tough. So where I was a year before was just figuring things out, finalizing everything, about to sell the company. Everything was great. Cinderella story, was going to get everything I ever wanted out of my life. And in a split moment, just like that, all ripped from me. And I'm finding myself starting over in some ways and having to re-inspire, reinvigorate, remotivate, and reinvest, albeit with a tremendous amount of
Mm.
knowledge, brand, contacts, team. I've got a major head start, but it's tough. It's
Mhm.
tough. A lot of people that are very successful say, if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't because it's too hard,
Mhm.
right? And here I am making the choice to do it all over again because
Mhm.
I know what I can do. My wife and I had a conversation about this, and I was leaning towards it. Once the whole FTC thing started, I said, I'm too tired. I said, I'm burned out. I want to be with the kids. I think I'm just going to become a consultant because I know I can make a
Mhm.
mill or two a year just doing consulting
Yep.
and keep it low key for a few years and just be with the kids. And my wife, I was serious sold on it. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. My wife started laughing. And I said, what are you laughing about? She looks at me and she goes, it's really sweet that you want to do that. And thank you for putting your family first, but don't. I'm like, what? I
Mhm.
was like, she's like, you're going to be miserable. You're not going to
Mm.
make it. If you're not charging for a big mountain, you're miserable. It's who you are.
Mhm.
It's your heart. You got to go find a mountain. Go find your
Mm.
mountain. The other mountain fell apart, but go find your next mountain. Because if you don't
Mm.
have one, you're not you.
Mm.
And I remember thinking like, well, shit, ask me twice. So go find it then. And I did. And I did, thankfully. Wasn't the first one I found. Took me a couple of years, but I need that. And that's another message I would tell the people that are listening is you got to have purpose.
Mm.
People ask me what powered me through all of this. I gave myself purpose. I found purpose. If you don't have purpose, my story became my purpose, right? My
Mhm.
mess became my message. So if you don't have purpose and you're getting every day and you're just doing the same thing and you don't actually have a means to an end, you don't have the thing you're trying to do, the area you're trying to leave impact and legacy and change, and it makes it really hard. That's where I think a lot of misery and burnout comes from, right?
Mm.
In my company, I was burned out. Before the FTC thing happened, I was totally burned out. I had lost
Yeah.
my purpose. I'd already attained it. We were the number one company in that field, and I wanted to do something different. And so I think that's where
Mm.
burnout comes from. Right now, you would think I should be burned out. I got 2 kids. I got, starting something brand new, building a software company while also building an education company. And I'm not. I'm not burned out at all. I'm super excited because I
Mm.
wake up every day with purpose.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. Oh my gosh. The whole time you were talking, you're obviously taking us on an emotional journey because we're all, I think there's so many things that you had said there around. There's so many things involved in that when you're building a company. Like you really build with your whole self. So your heart, your soul, your reputation, like if you're a good person, you do care about what people think to some extent. And you always it sounds like you want to help people, you want to lead people to their dream, to their mountain, all of those things. So I can only imagine how you felt when, number one, you had to tell the people, number two, when this all kind of came crumbling down around you. Like, how do I even start something new when this
Yeah.
reputation is behind me? Like, I'm in this with you. I'm like having
Yeah.
all the feels right now. So tell me,
Yeah.
like, what was the thing that happened? Like what actually happened in the company? Because I know now, you have this book called Don't Say That, like, and this all
Yeah.
kind of led up to that. So let's talk about that. What
Sure.
happened? What were we doing wrong? How do we avoid it?
Yeah, I'd love to share one more story that
Please.
gets to that because you nailed it on the head. The mental torture of me having to face the demon of, am I a bad person?
Yes. Yes. Totally.
Ooh, that because look, I don't have any ill will towards the FTC. People always try to, I got a lot of people try to bait me into it. And I'm like, actually, I still really believe in the purpose of the agency. I think they do a lot of great work. I think I'm collateral damage, but I don't think I deserve what I got. But they
Mhm.
say you can go to prison and ask anybody. They're like, I didn't do it. It's like
Mm.
whatever. I'm not gonna get that. I'm not gonna have that argument. That wasn't Cinderella. I understand there were some things that were done wrong, and we'll get into that. But the part that was the worst is that they're lawyers, right? So you're dealing with
Mhm.
lawyers, and so you might say, I would say something thinking I'm saying something that's going to prove my positive side of me and the good, and they would twist it and
Mm.
come right back and say, oh. So, for example, hey, we have scorecards. We were scoring every sales call that led to a sale. We were monitoring our agents and making sure if there was anything really bad, we'd refund it or whatever. Like we were being very proactive about making sure these sales calls, nothing bad was being done. So they turn around, they're like, oh, okay, so, you know, every sales call that wasn't 100%, you refunded, right? It's like, well, no. I mean, we didn't
Mm.
just, oh, so you knowingly kept money from things that were violations. And it's like, whoa, 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 time out, time out, time out, time out. That's not what this was supposed to be
Mm.
like. What did you just do there?
Yeah.
So I got to a point where I was really starting to feel, I'm genuine. I was up at night more than anything. Wasn't worried about it. My reputation was a very big thing for me. I was like, when that press release hits, what are people going to do to me? But more than that, I was like, did I hurt people? Have I been hurting people? Like, I was never my
Mm.
intention. And like, I never wanted to do that. And and it was really driving me nuts. And people around me would say, no, man, no, man. And I'm like, yeah, but why am I getting hit? And then I'll tell you the moment I felt like God himself came down and said, okay, you need to see this, you need to hear this. And it changed towards the end. Okay. It was about 12 months in. I actually went to the FTC. So I actually went to their office to give them a presentation. Really ironic because they started the case with me about my webinars. And I actually
Mm.
went there to conduct a webinar. So I created a 40-slide presentation about my company, me, and I thought that was just a little ironic. But here's what happens. You walk into the FTC building. They have like multiple layers. So they have a government building. It's really nice. And in that, they have a wing for the FTC and then a wing for other organizations. So the first security check you do is like the TSA. Literally looks like a mini TSA at the airport. Then you enter this common area and you head towards the FTC wing, at which you have to knock on the glass and there's another security and they open it for you. So I had like 5, 6 people with me, my lawyers and my team. And we walk in and I'm kind of behind everybody. And as soon as we walk in, there's a big desk and a security guard at the desk. And I'm kind of in my own head rehearsing my talk and stuff. And
Mhm.
I just hear someone say, Anik, is that you? And I'm like, who said that? It's the security guard behind the desk.
Mm.
And he's elated, standing up and he's like,
Mm.
holy shit, dude, Anik. And he says these words to me. He goes, what are you doing here? And I didn't know what to do. So I just like pointed at the Federal Trade Commission logo behind him. I'm like, and he turns around and he goes, oh man, damn it. This is his exact reaction. And so he's like, man, I'm your biggest fan. I've been following you for years. I watch all your videos. You do such amazing stuff. He's like, I've never bought any of your courses or anything, but like your free stuff has been so amazing, man. You've made such an impact on my life.
Mm.
And I was like, what is happening? Like, I am in the belly of the beast. And there's
Yeah.
someone here who says that I've been helping them. And so the FTC attorney comes down to receive us. And of course, my attorney jumps on. He's like, "Oh, you got to talk to this guy. Look at him." Like, and so we're in the elevator. It's quiet. It's a really awkward elevator ride, right? With the FTC attorney in there. And about 2 minutes, like 20 seconds in, that FTC attorney just goes, "Oh, that's a first." And we didn't even know what he's talking about. We've kind of forgotten about the whole thing. And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "That being recognized like that, and someone like that, that's never happened." And this guy's been there for a while. So when I was leaving, the guy catches me again, and he's like, wants to take a picture and stuff. And he goes, "Man, you know what? Seeing you today is a sign. I'm going to go home. I'm going to buy that course I've been thinking about for the last couple of years." And I was like, "Buddy, you can't now. We took it down." And he's like, "They ruin everything." This is exactly what he said. They ruin everything. And I'm like, so I left that, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that sign. That I'm not that person. And that person was there to remind me that I've done a lot of good and I've helped a lot of people, and that I'm not going to let this organization define who I am. And I'm going to write it off to some misunderstandings. We're going to settle this, and I'm going to go back to doing what I do. But to answer your question of what got me into it, this is the other part of this whole process that I hate. So when they come to you, they demand, you basically prosecute yourself. So they send you a civil investigative demand letter. Okay. 36 pages. I had to eventually turn over 600,000 pieces of documents in discovery. That cost me a couple of $1 million, just team costs, forensic companies. I had to pay for that out of my pocket to do. So they ask you for everything, and you ask them one question: why are you here? What triggered you to look at me? What have I done that is so bad that you are here? And they say, we don't have to tell you. I don't like that. That's not fair. But anyways, that's the answer. So I don't actually know what it is, but I can infer from what things they asked me in that letter. And it was basically things I was saying on my webinars that they wanted proof of. So for example, here's a student that's made $20,000 using our training. So the two things they asked for: one, give us the proof of that. I don't know. She said so. Well, I ain't proof. And number two, is that the typical result of your typical customer? Show us the typicality study that you did to allow you to use that testimonial. And I was like, huh? I just didn't know about that. Didn't understand that rule. Now, get this. I had a full-time paralegal that worked for me, and I had a counsel that I used to consult with on a weekly basis. I paid him over at least $1 million over the last 10 years. And as we go through this case and I start to learn and I start to say, God, there are so many things. How do I, being one of the what they call OGs of the space, right? Someone who's been around for 20 plus years. If I don't know these rules and I don't know some of these things, how the heck is everyone else going to know them? There's no chance. And I've been good about it. I have a paralegal that reviews all my sales calls. I constrain my sales team like crazy. I have a lawyer that I've paid a lot of money to that I consult with. But I'll tell you right now, at least 60% of what's in this book, I never knew. Until I'm in the process. And in that process, I found this attorney, Greg Christiansen, who is one of the top compliance attorneys I've ever met. This guy is not only amazing as a person, but he's a brilliant attorney. And he started leading my case. But I wish I'd met him before that. I would have never even had a problem. This guy's brilliant. So he joined in on my mission. I at some point halfway through was like, no, this will be my redemption. This will be my cathartic thing. I'm going to write this book, whether people buy it or not, because I want to put the education out there, because I didn't know these rules, but I want to make sure that people know and have the option to access them. You can't read the Federal Trade Commission Act. You're not going to understand it. It's written by lawyers for lawyers. A copywriter, me, wrote this book alongside of Greg. This is very easy to understand. And so I wrote it, and I made the decision to write it in the middle of the case because I was learning so much. Then when the case closed, it took me a few months and we put the book together, Greg and I. And when we rolled it out, I didn't really know what the expectation. Look, think about it, Lori. It's compliance. Like, who wants to talk about that? Let's go back to talk about how to make millions of dollars. Like, that's what I used to teach people. But it's actually been fascinating. The community that we've built, we've sold over 3,000 books now, and people love it. And I'm actually helping people. I'm redoing their marketing with them and making a deep impact. We built software now that companies can use to automatically check their websites for compliance issues. So it's become a whole mission, but really in the end, we created something called a Pentagon of Compliance that's in this book. There's 5 key things that can drastically reduce your risk of being sued. There's others, and we cover them in the book, but these 5 key are like the 85% of the problems. And it's easy, and it's also not. At this point for me, compliant marketing has become like riding a bike. I get on, I just start riding. I don't think about how or where or what. When you first start, we've been trained some really bad habits. Here's what happened. 100 years ago, 200 years ago, someone started marketing. Every generation's learned from that. it's gotten more competitive. And the more competitive it gets, all us marketers start to push the line because we want to say more, do more to get attention. And with every generation, we learn from our gurus who are doing things a certain way, and we have to add to that and add to that. And it's gotten kind of out of hand. And
Mhm.
so now to rip all that apart and say, here's the right way to do it, there's a lot of friction because people have never seen it done that way. So they automatically think it doesn't work. And so I'm just here, the beacon of light, saying, it does work. And I'm doing it. And I can show you. And it takes a little bit of time to learn it. But
Mm.
once you start doing it, you get better customers, lifetime customers, faster growth, sleep better at night. And so actually, if tomorrow you ripped me of all of these rules and said, Anik, you don't have to do compliant marketing anymore. Go off and do what you were doing before. I would actually say, no, thank you. I actually am a big fan of compliant marketing because I love the customers that it gets me. They're better, they spend more, and I get more results out of them. So anyway, so that was how it started. They
Mhm.
quoted a lot of my webinars, but once they were in, oh boy, they went through my company. They investigate. They're very good. They find the most random things and make a fuss of it. So then they went through everything. And then once they found out I had a phone sales team, it was game over because that's where they love to focus on.
Okay. All right. So can we talk about the 5 key things?
Absolutely. So
Okay.
number one, misrepresentations. Okay. So what's a misrepresentation? That's
Mhm.
a professional lawyer way of saying lies. Most of us marketers, if I asked a marketer, hey, do you lie in your marketing? 9 out of 10 will say no. I would never lie. Okay. Do you do a bonus stack? Like, do you say your bonus is worth $3,000 and
Mm.
this bonus is worth 2,500 and this bonus is worth 4,800 and stack it up to $29,000 in total value that you get today for $500?
Mm.
You're telling me I get a Model 3 Tesla for $500? Do you do that? And then they start to get fidgety. Well, so do you do that? Yes. Well, as according to the FTC, that's lying.
Mm.
Because I can say this book is worth $3,000. Who the hell said that and agrees with it? I
Mm.
have to have actually sold this book to a volume of people for $3,000 for me to be able to say it's established value of $3,000. So, okay, great. Have you ever been on a webinar and said, guys, the first 20 people get this bonus, but
Mm.
then gone on to give it to the first 30, 40, 50 people? We've all done it. It's innocent stuff. It's like,
Mhm.
but that's a misrepresentation. You are convincing someone to purchase something in a rush on one representation, and then you're misrepresenting it later because you're not following it.
Mm.
How many times have you made up stats or said something, but it was like, hey, most of the doctors we talk to approve of this. It's like, well, did you actually talk to doctors? Like, well, no, I mean, I've spoken to a few on the phone. It's like, you can't misrepresent the facts. You have to say the truth, even in the most obscene environments, like the first 20 people will get this, or this bonus is worth X amount, or the best is like fake sales, right? I mean,
Mhm.
when you say this is worth $300 and you cross it off and say it's 97 today, that's a misrepresentation. Where did that 300 come from?
Mm.
Right? How did you establish that? So misrepresentation is kind of the first key, very easy door that they can open if they choose to, because most all marketers are misrepresenting something. But it's probably not the number one door they open, believe it or not. Number two, we start to talk about something called net impression. It's probably the most pervasive concept that the FTC is worried about. And it's the number one way. If you can understand net impression, it's going to answer 90% of the questions you have about FTC compliance. So one of the things I've seen out there all the time that people love to do, the marketers love to do, is they love to try to out-lawyer the lawyers. Okay. And this always makes me laugh. And I used to be one of them. So, hey, you can't tell people how much money they're going to make. I don't. Well, I'm reading this statement right here. I said you could. I didn't say you will. I said you could. Aha, I win.
Mhm.
And I'm like, really? So lawyers went to law school and all that, and like you just changed one word and you win. It's not how it works. And so they've thought about that. And so they created something called the net impression. So the FTC and other regulators, like state regulators and other people, have a very simple stand on this. They say, look, what does a common person hear? If I keep repeating in a 20-minute presentation to you that you could make this, you could make that, you could do this, you could buy this car, you could have this lifestyle, you could, are you actually hearing the you could, or are you hearing you will? So
Mm.
what you're supposed to do is pretend like this 20-minute video. You pull the person off the street. You say, watch this 20-minute video. They're done. You hit stop and you say, what'd you take away from that? How much money do you think you could make if you followed the stuff that this person teaches? The correct answer they should say is, well, I don't know. That's a cool skill, but I have no idea how much I would make, but
Mm.
sounds awesome. But if they answer and say, oh gosh, I'll make at least 10 grand a month, boom,
Mm.
violation. You own the net impression you create. So even if you're not directly breaking any of the rules that the FTC has, but your net impression is breaking them, right? Another prime example. I always say this. This is an example you'll never forget. So, Lori, let's say I walk you into a room, okay? You come with me, there's 10 people in the room. Say, Lori, there's 10 people in this room. Person number one is Mike. Mike works for Apple. Person number two is Samantha. Samantha works for Apple. Person number three is Jameson. Jameson works for Apple. Person number four is Nicole. Nicole works for Apple. Person number five is Sandy. She works for Apple. Lori, I'll give you $100 right now on the spot if you could tell me who person number six works for. Who would you guess?
Apple.
Apple. And I say, ha, nah, 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 nah. Nope, they work for Microsoft. What would your reaction be? You kind of look at me and go, what the
like, why were we doing this? Isn't that
like you just led me on. Like, what? Yeah. Like, good for you. You won, but like that was the stupidest. Why would you do that? You led me on purpose.
Right.
And so that's what a lot of marketers are doing there. And then I could be like, what? I never said you were for Apple. You made that assumption. That's on you. And the FTC just simply, and the regulator just simply say, no, the assumptions that are being made on the other side are on you if you're influencing them. So that's a net impression. So the third thing, if we move on, is claims. I heard a marketer once say the stupidest thing. This is a person of influence. And after my case happened, I was getting chewed apart in their group, and not in the group. And I saw the marketer say, the FTC doesn't care about claims at all. All they care is if you issue refunds and keep your customers happy. And it really boiled my blood because I realized, God, this person has a lot of reach and influence. And that is the worst piece of crap advice ever. Because if you read my civil investigative demand letter, 36 pages, it's full of nothing but substantiate this, substantiate this, substantiate this, this claim, you made this claim, you made this claim, you made this claim. It's all about claims. That's literally the number one thing that they care about. There's 4 types of claims. Express earnings claims, that's clear. You will get this result. You will make $10,000 a month. You will blah, blah, blah. Then there's implied earnings claims. This is where I got in trouble, and this is where most people violate. Implied earnings claims, like Lori, right now, if I was like, let's go back to that same example. Lori, meet person number one. This person makes $10,000 a month because of me. Meet person number two. This person makes $22,000 a month because of me. Meet person number three. And I went all the way down to 10 people, and I kept you in that room for a half an hour to an hour. How likely are you to buy that product? Probably very. You've been hyper influenced by them. You now really believe that you can have the results they're having. Well, I just created an implication. I implied, unless I can prove that their results are typical, right? My typical customer gets that result. If I can prove that, then I'm fine. I can imply whatever the hell I want as long as I can back it up. But no one can actually prove typical results typically. So it's an implied earnings claim, right? If I give you testimonial, it's an implied earnings claim. Number 3, performance claim. So now we get a lot of people that are listening and say, oh, I'm fine. I'm a weight loss coach. I'm a fitness coach. Oh, well, performance claims are a claim. You lose X pounds, gain X number of muscles, become twice as productive. Like, these are performance claims. And so they still are claims that need to be backed up. And then the last one is the one that I think they just hate the most. Like, they don't go after this the most, but they're always the most sarcastic about it in their press releases and in their complaint letters. And that's lifestyle claims. So right now, Lori, let's say I didn't talk about making money at all. I didn't tell you what you can make. I don't even talk about a testimonial. But as I sit here presenting to you, I got my gold chain on. I got 2 girls' bikinis with next to me, beautiful women. I got a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, a helicopter, a mansion, and I got a money gun right here. And I'm just shooting money all over the place. And I'm doing this interview saying, man, you got to listen to me and live like me. That's called a lifestyle claim. And they hate them. Your little Lambo videos and your private jet ads you do, they make it into the complaint letters. They can't stand it. I don't know why. They have like a special place in their heart against those. Thankfully, never an issue for me. I never did that. I hated it. That's tacky. But those are the 4 claims: express earnings claims, implied earnings claims, performance claims, and then, of course, lifestyle claims. So avoid those. Number 4 of the 5 is substantiation. It's directly tied to the claims. Anything you say that is an absolute statement must have substantiation, not after the fact, before you say it. So a lot of times they'll reach out and say, prove this. And you're like, well, I need a couple of weeks. They say, So you mean you said that without having proof of it? This is how they'll twist things. You're like, well, wait, no, hold on. I'm not saying that. So if you say something like 9 out of 10 doctors recommend this supplement, Cool. Let's see the study. How do I know you didn't just call 10 of your uncles, get 9 of them to agree with you? I want to see the actual study that says 9 out of 10 doctors recommend this supplement, right? Some of the big companies have actually gotten in trouble for this, like tooth whitening pastes and stuff. Like there's been cases against them. It used to be the number one thing. 4 out of 5 dentists recommend this toothpaste. And it's like someone actually got in trouble for that. I'll tell you in my case, this will really drive home this point. So this became an 8-day ordeal. Probably cost me thousands in legal fees to finally make go away. When I was 25 years old, just before I turned 25, I've won one of the greatest honors of that time that I loved. Business Week magazine, which no longer exists, named me number 2 entrepreneur in the country under 25. I was really proud of that. That was awesome. So for the longest time, I would say that I'm a past top 3 entrepreneur under 25 as named by Business Week. It's true. Problem is, I lost the physical magazine when I was shifting houses. Bloomberg came in and bought Newsweek and bombed the website. It's gone. So the links don't work. So the FTC says, prove it. We don't see it. I showed them a couple of articles. They said, nah, it's not proof. You could have influenced those articles. I'm like, they were written like freaking 10 years ago. Like, are you kidding me? Nope. So I was like sweating, and they really made us think about this. Like, prove it. You said this, prove it. So thank God what happened is I found an email I had sent to my father that had the link directly to the story, but the link doesn't work because the site's gone. But thank God for whoever thought about Wayback Machine. Thank you. Because I went to Wayback Machine, put that URL in, went years back, found a screenshot of it, boom, sent that to them, and they were fine. So down to that level of detail, what are you saying? And make sure you have actual proof of each of those things. So the software that we've built now, what's nice is a lot of times people are like, well, I don't really know what an absolute statement is. How do I know I need to prove something? So what I say is, look, use the software, go pop your copy in there. We know how to recognize using AI what is an absolute statement, and we'll let you know that this needs to be substantiated. And you have a button next to it that you click. That's coming soon in about 2 weeks from the time we're filming this, that you'll hit substantiate. You'll upload your substantiation. It'll tie it to that statement in the future. If you ever make that same statement again, it knows it has proof and it'll tie it. So substantiation is very key. It's probably the number one thing that they're after. They want to make sure that whatever you're saying, you have proof of. And you know what? If you can prove it, they'll go away. Literally, they will. They never do, though, because no one can ever prove the stuff that they've said. Most marketers just can't. And then last but not least is testimonials, the most important. And here's something I'm telling everybody. If you're using testimonials, the FTC has done press release after press release now saying, we regulate testimonials the most. Like, they are being so loud. With me also, it was one of the big sticky points that got them the door. So I always tell people, if there's a back door through which the FTC is coming into your house, they have told you. This is like me calling you and saying, Lori, I am going to come and rob you through your kitchen door tonight. I'll be entering through your kitchen door around 11 o'clock. At that point, Lori, if you don't lock your kitchen door by 11:01 when I'm in your house, that's your fault.
Yeah.
Like, I told you where I'm coming, when I'm coming. They've been saying it now for years. They've been saying, get your testimonials in order. And most people are not touching them. They don't know. So this is the biggest thing you can do right now to reduce risk in your company. Most people love to use results-based testimonials. Okay. I get it. Old school marketing teaches us that that's what works. So Lori, in your Facebook group, if someone comes and posts a testimonial about you that says, my God, I listened to Lori's podcast. I've made like $1 gajillion, $1 billion. This is awesome. Obviously, you're like, whoa, this is so cool. Like, thanks for sharing. Screenshot, pop it into my PowerPoints, pop it up on my website. Comments, not judgmental at all. I did that forever. That's completely illegal for a multitude of ways. So here, if you want to use results-based testimonials, there's 4 rules. Number 1, signed affidavit. So you'd have to go to the person and say, hey, I'm about to use your name and likeness to promote myself. Can you please sign a release and an affidavit attesting to those results and allowing me to use this? That's number 1. Okay, fine. Number 2, can you prove it? I need substantiation that you actually made $1 gajillion, $1 billion with my stuff. So I need to see the screenshots. I need to see the before, the after. I need a little write-up of what you did, what you learned from me that made that money. The person starts to go like, what are you doing, man? Like, and it's intrusive. So a lot of people say, well, why do I have to prove it? It's not my claim, it's theirs. True, as long as it stays inside that Facebook group and you don't use it. But the minute you took a screenshot and dumped it in your webinar and your presentation, it became your claim. You're using it now, so you need to substantiate it. Number 3, this is where all results-based testimonials fall apart. And that is typicality. It's great that that person made $1 gajillion, $1 billion. Is that the average result of someone who works with you? The average person who finishes the program with you, are they going to make that? Because if they're not, you can't use outliers to represent the common. So this is where most of them fall apart. So you have to have a provable typicality study shown. So if you want to use results-based testimonials, you can only use the results-based testimonials that are within a range of the typicality study. And then last but not least, you have to have within proximity of the testimonial, you have to have a disclosure and disclaimer, not just at the beginning and at the end, but right there every time you have blocks of testimonials. This is very difficult to do for most people. If you're a coach, if you're a consultant, not that hard. You can get proof. You don't have a lot of clients. You can get the signed releases. You can have substantiation and typicality. But if you're out there selling courses, it's really difficult to track all this. So I've switched. And what works even more amazing for me and removes all the risk is I went to simply experience and character-based testimonials. My testimonials are now about their experience with the program, which I can control. I can't control the results you get. I can control the experience you have. I can control my character. So their testimony is about me living up to what I promised, how much people loved it, what they think about it. So in that case, all I have to do is get a signed release to use their name and likeness and put a disclosure. I have nothing to substantiate and I have nothing for a typicality. My conversions have been amazing. I'm using testimonials more today than I ever did before, but I'm doing them the right way. And they're working really, really well. So there you go. Those are, and honestly, those 5 are not in order. Right now, if you ask me, hey, Anik, which is the number one that you would attack to reduce risk? I would tell you number 1 is testimonials. Number 2 is claims, and then everything else. Those 2 are your biggest risk factors that you need to address.
So helpful. I mean, and honestly, there was a moment there I'm like, well, this is looking bleak for marketing. Like, how do we
Everyone
so
goes
in
through
your
that.
in your book, do you share the other ways that you're marketing that are getting the results as well?
Yeah, so we get into it a little bit, but I can
Yeah.
just tell you that there's definitely a series, second part of the series coming out, which is, but if you get the book, then you get invited to join us also in something we have called the Compliant Academy. So you can go check it out now. It's compliantacademy.com. And if you join our Compliant Marketing Academy, which is what you see at compliantacademy.com, I have a 8-part course, a video course that I did, where basically what I did is I took 8 triggers that most marketers love to lean on to create conversion, but they mostly do it the wrong way. So I tell you the clean way of doing it. So I tell you the compliant way of testimonials, a compliant way of sharing your own results with people without creating a negative net impression, the compliant way of creating social proof, the compliant way of replacing hype, because hype can help convert, but who does it convert? So how do we replace it with something that's compliant and gets better customers? So that's there in that course as well. And I'll tell you this too, Lori. When I was going through this and I started learning the lessons, the very first thing I thought was, what the hell am I going to teach? I'm just going to go buy some Subways. Like, what's the point? And then I was like, well, I wonder if the poster that they put on the Subway is even compliant, because they never look like that. The sandwich doesn't look like the one in the poster. And so I went kind of deep into that world and I was like, well, what is and what isn't? And I got to tell you, I've come out the other end now and I love it. It works. It works great. The quality of customer you get is so much better. They stay with you so much longer. It becomes easier to scale and build your business. But it's a muscle. You got to practice it. Just remember one thing. We learned marketing over the course of years. Right? We do things the way we do today over the course of watching others and learning for years. And if you want to do it right, you're going to have to uncode some of those things and relearn. It takes a little time. Now you can do it on your own, which is what I had to do, and it took me 2 years. Or you can come join us and let us join the community, right? If you buy the book, you're in our community, by the way. We give you a free community on Facebook. It's very vibrant. We have 1,100 people as of today. And I'm in there. Seriously, I'm in there 15 times a day. So like between podcasts and stuff like I'm doing right now, first thing I was open is I'm in the community answering questions for people because it's something I'm really passionate about. And there I do help a lot of people. So they'll post something. I'm like, why don't you say it this way? It'll be more compliant. But there are definitely ways. Now there's some things, right? If someone comes to me and says, well, Anik, I want to tell someone that they'll make $100,000. I'm like, there's no way to say that. There's no compliant way to make a claim, right? I mean, you can't. So, but most all things, 90% of things out there, there's a compliant way of getting the same impact that you wanted with what you're trying to say.
Okay. Amazing. Well, where do we find you, follow you, get the book, all of the things?
Thank you so much. Yeah. So don'tsaythat.com. If you go there, you'll have 2 choices on that page. You can click to our book, which we'd love to have you come buy the book. It's $7 digital version. And in the US, $10 shipped to your house. There's a few upsells behind it. Please grab some, support the cause. That's awesome. We use all of this, use it right back in ads to spread the message. Also, when you go to don'tsaythat.com, you'll see that we have a podcast. Every week we release episodes. They're really tactical. We get into specific, we see what are the recent cases, what are the changes, how do you do this, how do you do that. We talk a lot about how to do things correctly on the podcast. And then also check us out at two more URLs I'll give you: compliantacademy.com if you want to be a part of our actual academy, where you have access to us at no extra fees. You can access the attorney, get me to review stuff, get him to review stuff. And then we have complyly.com, COMPLILY.com. That's our AI powered software. If you want to go in there, we actually, by the time this episode releases, I think it'll be out. We have a free feature that gives you 5,000 words for free to go in there and scan and get an idea and gauge for how our software works. So go in, play with it, join us at Complyly. And, with the combination of the education in the book and the access to the attorneys and access to us through the academy, and then of course the software that helps do a lot of the work, we have tried our best to build the full support that you would need as you approach compliance.
Amazing. Well, we're so grateful for you for doing that. And I will put that all in the show notes. And we appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been an honor. And for all of you who've listened, thank you for being a part of this mission now and allowing me to share my story. And hopefully it's made an impact.
All right, guys, go check out the show notes. You can find everything linked up that he just mentioned there. And until next time, earn your happy. Bye, everyone.